Dag mensen, mijn naam is Johnny Verkeuringen, CEO van de Europese Goudstandaard, een Belgische dealer in fysiek goud en zilver, baren en munten. Vandaag spreken we met een zeer uitzonderlijke man met een uitgesproken reputatie. We spreken vandaag met Gerald Celente, een trendvoorspeller met meer dan 40 jaar ervaring. Gerald Celente is directeur van het Trends Research Instituut en uitgever van het weekblad Trends Journal. Hij is ook auteur van de bestsellers Trend Tracking en Trends 2000. Met zijn ervaring in het identificeren, volgen en voorspellen van trends staat hij wereldwijd bekend als de nummer 1 trendvoorspeller van vandaag. Gerald bouwde zijn reputatie op door zijn uitzonderlijke, nauwkeurige voorspellingen, waaronder de beurscrash van 1987, de crash van de dotcom-bubbel, de gold bullrun en de crisis van 2008. Hij pleit ervoor de geschiedenis te kennen vooraleer ze gebeurt, of zoals op zijn website vermeld, World Leader in Trend Forecasting. Naast zijn professionele activiteiten is Gerald Celente een echte patriot en vrijheidsstrijder. Hij is de oprichter van Occupy Peace and Freedom, een non-profit organisatie die de grondwetten wil eren en de menselijke vrijheden wil behouden en of herstellen op ieder vlak. Laten we onze gast verwelkomen. Welcome, Mr. Gerald Celente. First of all, thank you for joining our platform.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell us, our viewers, more about yourself and your work?
Well, the way I began was out of graduate school. I began working on political campaigns in Westchester County, which is right north of New York City. It's the richest county in America. And from there, they sent me to Albany, which is the state capital. And I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. And from there, I designed and instructed American politics and campaign technology, the first course of its kind. And I taught it at St. John's University. From there, I went on to work for a major trade association. I was a number 2 guy. And spending my time between Washington, D.C. and Chicago in those days. And that's when I became a political atheist. I started growing up and getting into the political system. I was with Ronald Reagan for an hour and a half one time at 30 years old. And I've been with princes, prime ministers, and presidents. And so I got to see it from the other side. And I became a political atheist when Jimmy Carter came back from spending New Year's Eve with the Shah of Iran and his wife, and told the American people that the Shah was the island of stability in the Middle East. And I'm watching these protests go on. And in the Bronx, where I grew up, I'm a Napolitano, born in the Bronx, so I'm born to be free. In the Bronx, we used to say, when you heard people like Carter talk, bullshit has its own sound. So they had that terrible revolution where they slaughtered so many people, brought in the Soviet, the secret police that made the SS look good. And so as everybody learned to hate the Iranians, I said to myself, where will gold and oil prices go? And I started playing the futures markets at a young guy, like, my late 20s, early 30s. And nobody was doing, very few people were doing it back then in the 70s. And I parlayed a $5,000 bet almost into $750,000. And that's when I quit my job and I began the Trends Research Institute. And I began to realize that you look at things for the way they are, not the way you want them to be. And a globalnomic perspective is if you only look at economics, if you only look at environmental issues, if you only look at the fields that you're interested in, opportunity misses those who view the world through the eyes of their profession. So I began to look at things on a global basis and making connections between different fields. And by the way, to make it clear, out of that nearly $750,000, I ended up losing, about more than 3/4 of it. It was gambling basically. But I learned the process, and so my first buy of gold was $187.50 an ounce.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're very glad to have you. We have a few questions for you. Let's start with this one. More and more people are getting vaccinated, and the mainstream media is already talking about economic recovery in most countries. How do you see this evolving? Is it too early?
No, there's going to be a bounce back. There's absolutely no question about it. I
Mhm.
mean, when everything goes down, it's down. And now you're pumping more money in and things are going to go back up. But it's an artificial boom.
Mhm.
It's not a real one. The hundreds of millions of lives and livelihoods have been destroyed. I mean, the businesses that have gone. I'm in New York. Midtown is ghost town. It's dead. Your office occupancy rate in New York City
Mhm.
is 14%. 14%. So all the businesses that depended on commuters, all the little bit gone, dead, losing it. And what's happened is, as I'm sure you people who follow, what you're doing, the bigs have gotten bigger
Mhm.
because of all this cheap money. You have merger and acquisition activity, skyrocketing. And then all the businesses that have been closed down, you could go to, the big chains, the big box stores. There are no regulations. You could go in and do anything you want, but you can't go into a small shop. They're non-essential.
Yeah.
So basically, again, I was in the political system. The people that are in politics are the people that I couldn't stand in high school and college that wanted to be class president or head of the student council. These are not smart people. They're egomaniacs, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and pathological liars. The people that work under them, called bureaucrats, these are low-life people that couldn't get a job in the real world that sucked their way into the political system. And they're bought off very, very cheaply. So what they've done is they get bought off by the bigs and they put all the smalls out of business. So on the economic recovery, yeah, there's going to be a boom back, but what's been lost has been lost. It's not coming back. And now you have this vaccination passports that are going on.
Mhm.
And what do you have at the very best, at the highest rate, a 50% vaccination rate, in places like Israel,
Yeah.
and who are the first to come out with the green passports. And so there's going to be a lot of people saying, I'm not going to get vaccinated. So this is going to hurt it. And now, and they have rules all over here where you have to be vaccinated if you want to go to a concert. You have to be vaccinated to go here or there. So this is unprecedented in world history.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a bounce back, absolutely. But it's going to be a fake one.
Yeah. Now, since the crisis of 2008 until the corona epidemic, a lot of countries around the world made enormous debts. And now, since COVID, it's got even worse. How do you see that these debts ever been repaid and by who?
No, they're not going to be repaid. And just what you said about before COVID.
Mhm.
I mean, in Europe, you had Germany. Germany was that far away from going into recession in 2000 and last quarter 2019.
Yeah, before COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like Italy was, they haven't returned, they're way down from, they never recovered from the 2008
Mhm.
and negative interest rates. So there's not going to be a bounce back. In Europe, you're going to see a continuing decline. They're not going to be able to pay off the debt. They're going to come up with a new currency.
Yeah.
And they're already doing it. China's doing it. Everything's going to be digital. We're getting rid of this dirty cash and we're going to digital trash. We know every penny that you spent, where you spent it, how you spent it, when you spent it, so we could get it because we don't work. We're politicians, so we need your money. So we're going to get all that tax money. They're going to invent a new currency and they're going to wipe out the debt artificially in some way. What people have to understand is that you have a criminal organization running the show. They're called the central banks. Not too long ago, in April, there was a holiday that you weren't allowed to celebrate anymore because you had to stay in. It was called Easter Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it was about this person called Jesus Christ, who 3 days before they put him on the cross, he chased the money changers out of the temple, made his own whip and chased them out. Became violent because the money changers were destroying the people that he cared for, and he paid for it. Mm-hmm. You have a criminal group that are running the world called the central bankers. We have them here in the United States. A low-life piece of garbage that should rot in hell called Woodrow Wilson. He was the president of Princeton University. I mentioned Princeton because there used to be this comedian by the name of George Carlin. Great guy. I know his brother Patrick, he's still around. And George Carlin said, it's one big club and you ain't in it. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. Cambridge, Oxbridge, all tied together. Going back to Woodrow Wilson, this guy put America into World War I. Had no business being there, destroyed beautiful Europe, keep it going, all those fighting, all the chemicals. Oh, by the way, what was that called? Back in the Asian swine, the big flu back, the Spanish flu. Oh yeah, the Spanish flu follows World War I. After all of this filth, the dirt, the chemicals were killing people. But anyway, going back to Woodrow Wilson, he brought the Federal Reserve in, private bank to run our country, a private bank. And they put the name federal on it. It's not federal. And every country's done it. As an Italian, look at the Italians. I'm ashamed of them. They bring in a Mario Draghi. How low can you go? Oh, I know, the guy that was the head of the Goldman Sachs gang that ran the European division for Goldman Sachs. Oh, before that, he was in the Bank of Italy and the World Bank. Oh, in the ECB, where he brought the negative interest rates and took all that money called quantitative easing and gave it to his buddies out there who had a lot of debt called bonds.
And now you have...
So it's a criminal group.
Now you have Janet Yellen.
Janet Yellen, a Federal Reserve right in front of us. That's the Treasury Secretary. Freedom has been stolen from the people right in front of their eyes. You have a criminal group of murderers and thieves destroying your country.
Yes. Now, with the debts and the new currency that you expect, how do you see this evolving over the next 10 years?
You look at what's going. Go back 10 years ago.
Yes.
You know, when people say to me, sometimes they call me a futurist. I say, I'm not a futurist. Nobody can predict the future. There are too many wild cards, man-made or made by nature. Who would have believed there'd be a thing called cryptocurrencies? Yeah. So when's it going to happen? When enough of the countries go crypto, they're going to do away with their competition, the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, and all of the others. And they're going to take it over. They're going to say, they're already doing it. Christine Lagarde had already said, and they've been pumping it out every now and then, that, oh, you could do money laundering and no one will be able to catch you with the cryptocurrencies. These slime balls have been doing money laundering for how long? Only probably since the beginning of when they could start doing it. Cryptocurrencies have nothing to do with it. So when they get their system in place and criminalize the competition, that's when it's going to happen as we see it. The date is hard to tell. But the date, just recently, Janet Yellen came out and said that there was a warning about inflation going up and interest rates would rise. It
was yesterday, I think. Yeah?
Right? Yeah. Hours later, she backtracked.
Unbelievable.
Hours later.
Yeah.
I didn't mean what I said when I said what I mean. Blah, blah. How can you look at these people? Look at these people. Look at them. Bernanke before her. Look at them. Look at them. How could anybody believe the crap that spews out of their mouth? Inflation's going to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what's going on. Oil prices are now they're $70 a barrel US in Brent crude. You can't get chips. To build a house in America, a new house, an average house, now costs $39,000 more just for lumber price.
Lumber, yes.
Just for lumber. Not all the other stuff that's gone up. Housing prices in America have gone up from March to March, last 2020 to 2021, 17.2%. Mm-hmm. But they don't put that number in the consumer price index. Yeah. You know why?
Yes.
Because they're lying pieces of low-life crap. Mm-hmm. So they artificially keep it down so they can keep the scam going. And the other reason is your Social Security benefits are based on consumer price index. So they don't want to give you anything back after you've paid all those taxes. Yeah.
That's right. My next question is combined with that, with the billions and billions of fresh money being pumped into the system for over more than 10 years now. Do you see a real danger of global hyperinflation? Or maybe a collapse of the total system?
Absolutely, absolutely a crisis in the whole. It's unprecedented. The debt to GDP ratio in the United States is the highest it's been since the end of World War II. And then you look at countries like what Italy is right about 170% to GDP. China in the 250 to GDP, Japan, one after another. Mm-hmm. It's all artificially propped up. So yes, there's going to be a currency crisis, but the other important thing about it is when all else fails, they take you to war. We are in a depression right now. Mm-hmm. It's being masked by the artificially pumped up equity markets. There are nearly 8 billion people on the planet. If 3 billion, 2 billion are in poverty or you still got the other ones so there's a fraud that makes it seem like everything's okay. Mm-hmm. You're going to see an explosion in Africa. You think you have an immigration problem now in Europe. Haven't seen anything yet. Same thing in the United States. Mm-hmm. And again, don't listen to my numbers or my facts. You could even look at, the club, the World Bank, the UN, the International Monetary Fund or Mafia Fund, whatever you'd like to call it. They're all telling everybody how bad it is on the emerging markets. And you talked about debt before and the debt that they have. So it's wonderful what's going on now in Eritrea as they're wiping out the Tigrays. A beautiful time in Sudan. Oh, in Chad, they just shot the guy that was running the show for about 30-something years. And then one country after another, Angola, one after another. There's going to be protests, revolution. Oh, Lebanon is in perfect shape. Everything's great over there. You're going to start seeing regional wars, civil wars, explosions. Mm-hmm. Again, this is the globalnomic perspective, making connections between different fields. Mm-hmm. People are going to do everything they can to escape the violence, the corruption, the poverty, the crime. This thing is, I've been in this business for over 40 years. My heart is broken when I look ahead and I see the future, I see what's evolving in the future.
I understand. I have 7 children, I think the same. So It's not going to be easy for them. Now, next thing I want to go to, most analysts expect a temporary revival of the stock markets followed by a total collapse. People that are aware of that are currently looking for safe havens. And usually they look at gold, silver, cash, real estate, bonds, or cryptocurrency even. What would you choose and what definitely not?
Gold and silver. Gold right now should be well over $3,000 an ounce. Silver way over 100. What's holding it back are the cryptocurrency markets. They didn't exist before. So the people looking for safe havens are going into those kind of things. And it's also a gambler's speculation. At some point, they're going to go down. When and how, again, to me, it's going to happen when the governments start putting controls on them. People forget that's what happened with Bitcoin when China started banning it in 2017. The Chinese are the biggest ones buying it as the yuan was going down and they were looking for a safe haven. So I still believe in gold and silver. As for real estate, the markets that expanded with the COVID war, where people move to suburbs and other places in hot areas, they're going to stay up. Commercial real estate is going to go down.
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned to you and by the way, I'm one of 7 children too. May my parents rest in peace. The office occupancy rates around the world in major cities are way down. They're not going to come back full because now in the Zoom world, people are going to be commuting less. Who wants to commute an hour and a half each way when you could work at home and maybe go into work 2 or 3 days a week? And the markets were overbuilt before this happened. In New York, you could go east side, west side, all around the town. In 2019, Fifth Avenue, for rent, before this happened.
Yeah.
Places called Hudson Yards, this big, ugly thing that they built on the Hudson River. $25 billion with a B dollars. Ugly as can be. Empty. They had Michelin star restaurants in there, Neiman Marcus, the top gone, zip out, whoop. So those are the things that we see. Real estate's going to continue to go in good places. There'll be a down, but the commercial, we see it, whole different world. So and silver and gold to me are still I don't give financial advice, my safe havens. I buy it, put it away, boop, snip, boop, boop. Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to say, for young people, because you just mentioned your children, that to me is the best thing that any young person could do, is buy what they can, whether it's one coin, whatever they buy it and put it away and forget about it. As a young person, buy it, put it away and forget about it. So when you get to our age, you got this treasure chest that's going to be with you take you into the rest of your life.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the next we have also already spoken about. We see many investors still seems to think that the stock markets will continue to rise, but at some point it has to stop. May I ask, how and when do you see this happening?
It's very simple.
Yeah.
When interest rates go up. End of story.
End of story.
Go back to when Donald Trump was president.
Yeah.
How he hounded the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, to lower interest rates. They were raising interest rates. The markets were going down into the toilet where they should be because your PE ratios are way out of, they're ridiculous. How could the markets go up as the whole global economy is going down? How could that possibly happen? It's a rigged game. They're money junkies. They're addicts. It's monetary methadone. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they silenced Janet Yellen right away. No, interest rates aren't going to go up. No, we're not worried about inflation. And so when interest rates, to me, when they get around a little over 1.5%, 1.75, it's the crash. Because again, I mentioned about all the merger and acquisition activity, all these IPOs, the SPACs, and it's a dot-com bubble. So the when is very simple. Mm-hmm. When is going to be when interest rates go up and the money junkies can't get their fix. Now, having said that, there's always the wild cards. Yeah. War breaks out in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Natural disaster, whatever it might, there's always that in the cards. And the big one, there's two big ones to watch. Oil and copper. Mm-hmm. Copper prices right now at near all-time high.
Yes.
Copper is telling you where inflation is going because copper is used in everything from high tech to heavy industry. Yeah. Dr. Copper, they call it, because it's such a predictor of the health of the economy. Mm-hmm. And it's also the indicator. So I see, how could anybody say there's not hyperinflation when you're seeing the price? Look what's going on with the chips. Go automobile, they can't get any of them.
No, I read it yesterday. Yeah, they have none. No chips. That's right. Okay. I want to end with this question. As you know, we are precious metal dealers. How do you see gold and silver evolving in the following years? And do you dare put the numbers on it?
Yeah, I see gold having a potential to break over 2,100 this year and silver to go over $50 an ounce. Yeah. Silver's way undervalued right now. And particularly when you look at the purposes of silver, in that not as just an investment, but it's one of the best conductors of electricity. Yeah. It's in everything high tech. And there's no stockpiles of silver. Once you throw your keyboard breaks, you throw it away, your phone goes into the dump. There are no stockpiles of it. So I see silver as way, way undervalued. The ratio to gold to silver is way out of proportion. It should be about 17. It's about 70, 80 now. It's way out of proportion. So I still see a very high potential for both of them. And again, what's the wild card that's holding it back are the cryptocurrencies. Absolutely no question about it. Because the money's going into that realm. Okay. And again, another important factor, and I'm not making this up, the game is rigged. I know. And that's not a speculation or a conspiracy theory. There was a gang called the J.P. Morgan Chase gang that got fined in 2020 only $900 million, which is chump change considering how many people they screwed and how much money they made for rigging the precious metals markets. So they, right there, and that's the other thing, by the way, it's prosecution to the fullest for we the little people if we break any laws. But when the gangsters, the banksters, the murderers, and the thieves, they could do anything they want, and they get a slap on the wrist.
Yes, that's true.
Look how they feature that guy, Jamie Dimon, all the time, spewing out his bullshit. Every other day, Dimon bullshit, one after another. Name them. The rest, I used to be on all of them. I used to be on Oprah, the Today, all of them. BBC. One time, one little clown on the BBC tried to screw with me, and the France network. When in 2007, when I said the markets were going down, all these little people in the media, they're prostitutes, they're media whores, boys and girls that get paid to put out by their corporate pimps and their government whoremasters. There's not a truth among them. And they're not men and women, they're gutless little cowards. Because when you call them out, as we would say in the Bronx, they wouldn't know whether to piss or shit. Mm-hmm. They're gutless little cowards, and they are the ones responsible for selling all the fear and hysteria. They're the ones that take us to war. Whether it's, you name the war, they're all pro-war, and they were the first to be pro-COVID war. Their ratings go up.
Yeah, that's the same here.
I know, it's global.
Global. If you put on the television here, nothing about economy, nothing about the debts, nothing, only COVID, COVID, COVID.
COVID, COVID, COVID.
All day, all day.
Yeah. And by the way, I should have been wearing my mask as these stupid people do when they give the reports, right?
Yes.
Oh, and don't forget, when you masturbate, make sure you sanitize your hands.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Gerald, thank you so much for this interview. We are very grateful for this valuable information that you have given us. We put your YouTube channel and website in our description below, and I hope that all our viewers will become a member of your channel. Thank you again. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you again in the future.
And thank you. And remember, we have our magazine, the Trends Journal.
Yes.
There's no magazine that comes close to it in the world. I'm not bragging about it. The one that just went out this week was what, 135 pages?
Yes.
No ads. No ads.
I have received it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we tell you what's going on, what it means, and what's next, and help you prepare for the future. And we put every ounce of energy we have into making it happen.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Volg ons YouTube-kanaal voor aankomende interviews met meer experten van over heel de wereld. Word ook lid van onze besloten Facebookgroep Silver Squeeze, goud en zilver, waarom, wanneer, hoe en waar. Zo blijft u op de hoogte van alle nieuwe updates over de markt. Wilt u meer info of advies over het aankopen van fysiek goud of zilver? Ga dan naar onze website www.europeesegoudstandaard.be. Bedankt voor het kijken en tot een volgende video.